Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for more minor league esports action. As mentioned before the break, this is the Champion League 3v3 Hive versus Eclipse. I am Lars Nude. Joining me here in the casting booth is the one, the only, the Thunder B. Thunder, how you doing?
I am excellent, Lars. I'm super happy to be here, and I am super happy to be the one and only. Apparently, that is a pretty large billing for coming in on the cast. Coming in, presumably, on the cast. I'll be here shortly, I'm sure. But for now, it's just going to be a podcast from my half of things talking about this matchup in the Champ League, one of two that we're going to be getting into, and it's an interdivisional matchup. So this is going to be, I think, part of the doubleheaders that are happening across the league right now in a few different leagues.
Yeah, this will be very interesting seeing the Hive versus the Eclipse. Neither one off to like a crazy great start to the season. The Eclipse so far 4-6, the Hive 3-2, so above 500, but not by much. This is very early season though. We have lots and lots of season left to see how this develops. I apologize, you have to stare at just my ugly mug and you don't get to see Thunder's beautiful face as well. And I got kicked out of the lobby, so we will solve that problem. Here is Thunder. Thunder, welcome in. And you're welcome, chat, for not having to just stare at me anymore.
You know what? I don't think I'm doing anybody any favors either. But at the very least, I'm here in the flesh now, so you can put a name to the face, to the sound, to the voice, all of that kind of stuff. And you know what? Stats-wise and records-wise, the Hive, I think if I saw correctly, are ahead here a little bit, but I think it's so early season that the interesting thing about the matches in the first few weeks is that there are lots of different combinations of players being tried out by teams. So early records aren't necessarily a great indicator of what could happen down the stretch with a lot of these teams, because they've yet to try the chemistries and combinations that might end up being the winning formula for their teams.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see how things evolve over time, especially in Champ League, because you get a lot of rank ups coming from Academy League. You have a few people ranking out, but generally people just get very good playing at Champ League. You get an interesting mix of play styles and an interesting mix of skill levels that for some of those lower level players, kind of like myself being at the absolute bottom of the barrel for Champ League, you get the opportunity to play against much, much better players. And when you get against those better players, you get better faster. So you get to see these teams that bring in some of maybe these lower level players develop over time, where they get that experience and the team chemistry of playing together over the course of the season, as opposed to starting with a really, really strong high level team that ends up ranking out. And now you're at the end of the season and you're scrambling to find players. So all of this to say, you're absolutely right. It's early season, and records being what they are, they're directionally an indicator of, well, how last week went, but it could be an entirely new lineup this week. It could be wildly different, or we could be running it back and seeing if things change this time.
And actually looking at the records officially now, you can't make a direct comparison because not as many games on the board here for the Hive in the Sky Division as there are for Eclipse in Storm. Eclipse have played 2 series, they're 4-6, whereas the Hive just 1 series to their name, 3-2. So if you extrapolate a little bit on the Hive, they're not that far afield from what the Eclipse have done so far, and I think this could end up being a very close match. But my goodness, is that an up in the air guess this early in the season? I will not be called upon to try to make accurate predictions on this, because I think it really could go either way, and I'm excited to see what will undoubtedly be at least I think a couple new players to the stream and to these particular rosters for the teams. Not everybody's retained, obviously, and with 3s coming into the mix, there are a lot more players on each roster to show what they can do on stream.
Yeah, I love casting 3v3s because you have so many more options in how you can attack the ball and attack the net. Here on the side of the Hive in the yellow, we have Umari. Oh, I have bitten off more than I can chew here, and Rogers. And then on the side of the Eclipse, we have Brindle, Spartacus, and Fraud in the purple. Game number 1 is underway. We're already 30 seconds or so gone, and a couple of quick back and forths. No one found a way to put this one home just yet.
And a lone shot on the board, actually, that was, I think, a second one added there to the Hive, to their tally. Both saved away by the Eclipse, so nothing hitting the ironwork just yet. And the team's just sort of testing the waters so far. At the midfield here, Few is going to grab some boost, but have the ball stolen away by Brindle. Rogers leaves it to Amory along the side wall. I'm taking a dive on that pronunciation as well for that name. We might have to get confirmation on what that X does to their name that's sitting in the middle of it. But
Umari, it's an A. Umari.
Ah, gotcha. so. And off the ceiling, that's not going to work out here. Eclipse are going to push back the other way. The first minute, come and gone, not a whole lot of bombast going on here on the field. I think there could be some stream nerves for some of the players, or just that warm-up phase that we're seeing.
Yeah, it's early. It's game number 1. There's not a lot of time gone, and we get these teams. They're just trying to feel each other out, seeing kind of what they can get away with, probe the defenses, see where they have an advantage, maybe how fast the other team is, and just generally trying to feel out kind of what's going to be pushed and what's not. But there it is. Few finds the top corner of the net. It'll be the Hive to strike first.
And a couple of defenders diving across the goal line. You'll see here Spartacus goes for the out challenge, and Brindle and Fraud both a valiant effort to get a piece of that one. But in the end, Few is going to just thread the needle and find the first goal here for the Hive. So they had the first shot and the first goal in this one so far. And I talked about how they, record-wise, at least for win percentage, were doing better than the Eclipse so far. And right now they're living up to that billing, getting us started on the scoring in this series. Meanwhile, trying to push back here the other way are the Eclipse. It's going to be pinched towards their net. Spartacus is going to have to clear long. Amari off to the side, kicks it back for Rogers to pick up in the corner. Evades one dunk. A little bit of boost to work with. Nice attempt there on the delayed flip coming off of the wall, but Rogers just couldn't get a piece of it.
I like to see the physical play developing here. That's something that isn't utilized enough, in my opinion. I'd love to see the bumps and the demos to try and open it up as Rogers touches that one into the ceiling and it falls back down into their own end. Plenty of time for Amari to collect this one and take it off the wall themselves. We're seeing a lot of this play develop kind of along the sidewalls. I'd like to see some of these shooting opportunities brought into the mid where you get a better angle, a higher percentage shooting opportunity.
It would be nice to see that, and I'm seeing a lot as well. Look, I mean, prime example right there is that there are a lot of challenges left unattended by the defending team in the midfield. Lots of space afforded to the team who's playing on transition. And speaking of which, Few is going to add a second goal here, transitioning from the sidewall, and they're just going to do it all themselves.
I like this awareness. Few was getting that midfield challenge, not allowing that one clear, and then attempted to pass it down for Amari, who was already on their way through to clear that net and open up an opportunity. And then Few recovers quickly from that pass attempt, collects it, and just drives it home. That physical play, what did I say? It opens up the net, and it's a great way to find an opportunity.
The Eclipse now trying to get something started. There's a challenge in front of the net. Few doing it on both ends of the field, though, with a nice defensive touch. Tries to get over top of Fraud on defense there. There's a rugby scrum in the corner. I'm not sure I could describe what just happened there. We're going to move on and talk about what's ahead instead. Rogers here trying to center it for the Hive to get another chance here. Few again leading the charge on attack and trying to get the offense started for the Hive here. That's a nice clear, though, from Brindle downfield. Rogers, awkward touch in the mid. Spartacus sends it close. And now we're seeing maybe shot accuracy becoming an issue for the Eclipse. That was a decent chance at a shootable ball that went amiss.
The thing I'm feeling out of the Eclipse is a little bit of lack of purpose in some of these touches, as that one's on net, talking about shot accuracy, but Few is able to get back to that one. But they've been just kind of banging the ball clear. They haven't been controlling it. I'd like to see some of these clears either kept close in an attempt to drive it upfield with control, or a dedicated pass out to a player upfield. Right now, as it stands, it's a lot of kind of dump and chase, as that one almost finds its way in. And now Umari off the wall, that touches lightly off the ceiling, a recovery to put a shot on net, challenged by Rogers. Keeps that one down, and it's been the Elite lately that have had the offensive pressure, and the Hive finally turning this one around. Though the Hive mostly in transition for their advantages and not so much on the established offensive rotation.
And it's true, the Eclipse did turn it up in a big way there on offense for quite a stretch. There were a few quality opportunities there that they couldn't find a goal on. They're now 3 stacked on the back end, trying to recover from some regained pressure here from the Hive. Few is diving in up front to try and get a challenge. Amari also getting a pinch out of the corner to try and get it mid. 2 Eclipse players on the wall, neither getting a piece of it. Brindle doesn't get a piece of it. And I said 3 names that whiffed. Usually that's going to mean a goal if they're on their defensive end.
Oh, yeah, a little bit of a slow recovery, too. Just the nature of those whiffs, taking those players well clear of the play. And what do you know, there's Few, the only player to score so far in this matchup between the Hive and the Eclipse. They get themselves a hat trick now with 26 seconds remaining. This may be out of reach of the Eclipse. It would be quite the comeback, especially with Umari driving just violently down the field, and Rogers looking for one of their own. But a goal for the road would do wonders going into game number 2 of this set of 5.
That could have been it, to be honest. A very close attempt there on the dribble downfield. Fraud might have a chance to put one on target. Rogers, a brilliant save perhaps to keep the score sheet clean here. Final chance for the Eclipse, but it's nicely hit down. And that is a very clean sheet for the Hive in game number 1. And you mentioned the 3 goals scored by Few. None of them were even assisted. It was well and truly a brilliant solo effort on a lot of those attempts. And they put their team over the top in game 1.
Not for a lack of attempting the team play. Like I said earlier, that second goal by Few was an attempted pass down to Amari, who had already decided they're going to go clear out the net. And just, okay, I'll collect this and I'll finish this off myself then. So Few showing up huge in the offensive end, does a great job of reading opportunities and jumping on them. On the other side, Eclipse, only 3 shots on net. Yes, they had that stretch of offensive pressure that looked great. They just didn't find a way to finish it off. I'd love to see them find a way to make those dreams come true. Don't let those memes be dreams. Get that offensive pressure and then finish it off.
It's true, and I think you pointed to something about a lack of purpose on the touches from the Eclipse earlier in the game, and that was very on the nail with that one. It really just seemed like when they were getting to the ball first, that's all that they were doing. It was to win the race and touch the ball first, and whatever happens after, they would kind of left up to fortune, and they didn't get all that much good fortune in game number 1. There needs to be speed and intention. That's the dream combination in Rocket League, is if you can have those 2 things in spades, you're going to win a whole lot of games. So we'll see if the Eclipse can bring both of them and just not interchangeably one or the other in game number 2.
The thing I do want to point out that I like for both teams is we saw physical aggression on both sides of the ball. I was looking at a map of the demos earlier, and there's a lot of demos on the field, but the other side of that was a lot of them were kind of a ring around the edges of the field. Not a lot of gameplay in the mid. So as we get into game number 2 here, I'd love to see some of these attacks developing midfield. There's an opportunity, a great little pass down to Fraud, who just gets pushed away. That's off the back wall. Now another opportunity, Fraud trying to make good. That should waterfall down. And Rogers has a great touch to clear. Rogers off the ceiling with a shot that's played down and a nice extra touch to finish it, but they didn't need it. Rogers on the transition.
And Rogers didn't even need that final single ounce of boost they had left in the tank. After the goal went in, it was a 1 in the boost tank on that one. It was great boost efficiency, though. They didn't start with very much on that wall play, that's for sure. But the touch ended up being enough. And despite the great initial setup and good start that the Eclipse had, it's still the Hive capitalizing first and getting themselves a lead.
And we got 4 goals so far in this series, and all of them to the Hive. But the Eclipse now tasked with getting this ball clear. I'd love to see some offensive pressure develop as that one just kind of drifts towards the net, and Rogers, kind of the biggest player so far in game number 2, clears it away.
Oh, well, only for so long. And I will say, granted, Rogers with a sweet assist on that. Look at the pass downfield. But Few knows how to score goals, as we have seen very abundantly, and they just got another one.
Few not to be outdone on the scoreline. I'm sorry, I tried to get you back in here, Thunder. I know people would much rather listen to you than me, but I just, it's hard when the Hive are out here scoring goal after goal.
Well, they might be adding another one here. Amari, as if on command when Lars mentions it, scores another goal here, and this is already far more hurtful than what the Hive did in game number 1.
Well, now the Hive have 1 each. Everybody eats at this table for the Hive. And they are just swarming the offensive end, doing an excellent job of getting pressure downfield and making these transition plays count. But again, it's the transition plays where they are finding themselves the most deadly. Like to see the Eclipse be able to settle this ball down and prevent these rapid transitions back and forth.
The Eclipse are now in trouble again in their own zone. Getting this ball clear, Spartacus, that's a nice touch on from the wall. Brindle misses on the shot opportunity, though. Spartacus with a follow-up towards the right side. Rogers touches that away. Along the sidewall. 2 players were nearby but missed on that one. It was given to Brindle in the mid. Amari with a nice touch on a dangerous ball that could have turned into a goal there. And the first one that the Eclipse trying very desperately to find here. But the ball possession just in the hands of the Hive way too often for them to get consistent scoring opportunities.
Yeah, we're seeing the Eclipse allow the Hive to just sort of tee off and run the field how they want to. I need to see the Eclipse get up in the face of the Hive, take away some of the space that they have to play the game that they want to play. But even as I say that, we see the Eclipse allow space for Omari to take a shot. Brindle sends this one into the wall. A little bit more dump and chase. Got to keep that ball close. If you are not going to be passing, you have to contain and retain that control yourself. Umari with a shot opportunity, and they can't quite find the save. That's number 4 to the Hive.
Oh my my goodness, the confidence and the comfortability on the field here for the Hive right now, just arriving in spades. And it's the complete opposite on the other side of the field, where there were 3 players, any one of whom could have been sent to make an early challenge on that ball and put pressure on the shot. But that pressure is just not there. There are free shots left, right, and center for the Hive right now, and it's no wonder that they're adding so many goals to their tally for this series.
7 goals so far this series, and all of them for the Hive. Most of them for few themselves. Kind of an ironic name, but we've got Umari challenging in the corner. Fraud sends this one to the mid. Few is waiting there. Brindle's on the cycle back. Tries to turn, but doesn't get an effective one as Spartacus sends that one back down to the Eclipse end. Hive double commit into the corner, so they won't get to take advantage of that little bit of a pop. Umari into the corner as well. And there's that dump and chase from the Eclipse. Really need to see them settle this one down. I'm not sure where the breakdown is, but a little bit of panic perhaps. Worried about getting beat, but where they're getting beat in the transition. Slow it down. Don't allow those transition plays to happen.
Either that, or if you want to play a fast transition, you have to have a team positioned more aggressively downfield. Almost. At certain times, you're leaving just a single player to clear the ball. Amari is going to add another goal here on a miss in the back end. The goaltending not quite up to snuff here, and while it becomes 5-0 here, yeah, we're pointing to a lot of things that need to be improved here on the side of the Eclipse, not least of which is they just need to get one on the board to break this curse that they are stuck in for this series so far.
Yeah, I mentioned at the end of the last game, I'd love to see the Eclipse get one for the road. At this point, I'd love to see the Eclipse get one, period, as now 8-0 as far as goals on the series go, and we're not even done with game 2. The Hive, kind of an unstoppable force, and we just haven't seen any real pressure towards the net from the Eclipse. They have 1 shot on net so far in this game for a total of 4 in this series. It's just not a good look when you can't bring any real pressure on the net.
It's true. You talk about the Hive being an unstoppable force. The Eclipse have been a movable object if these two are meeting in that particular adage, and it's not looking particularly any better here. The possession still highly in control of the team in yellow here. Broad kicks that into the corner. And as I say the team in yellow, I'm remembering very quickly that I should probably check if that's the actual color they're using on the broadcast, because they could be 2 different things with that color switcher mod. But maybe I'll have to flick over and check just to confirm that.
It is orange. I'll confirm that for you. It's orange and purple on the broadcast.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, either I'm colorblind or I just didn't think to check on that. Or maybe a little column A, a little column B. Oh boy, that could have been a 6th goal there for the Hive. And in the time that we were talking about all that color confusion, no goals were added to the tally, but that stings, no pun intended, a whole lot more for the Eclipse, because again, they did not find the dignity, the momentum goal that they need to get the ball rolling in this series.
Well, as we see the Hive take another game, likely in another shutout here as Rogers plays that one down. I hate to say it, but we've said about all there is to say about the difference between these two teams and why the Hive are running away with this series right now. So I'm going to take a moment here, if you don't mind, Thunder, to say welcome in if you're just joining us to Minor League Esports. And if you're not part of this community, we have a competitive league for everybody at every level with a professional broadcasting atmosphere. So if you want to be in one of these streams as one of these players, go ahead and go to mlesports.gg/apply.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna come in and help out the Eclipse, you want to join that roster and lend them a hand here when they are seriously under it against a Hive team who are playing very confidently, very coordinated. Very seldom, I will say, are they double committing and stepping on each other's toes as well. I think that's one of the intangibles that has really paved the way for success for Hive in this series, is that we see all the offensive firepower, but you don't necessarily always notice that their rotations are so clean and so well spaced that there is very seldom any room to kind of crack their way through if you're the Eclipse team here. So this isn't just the Eclipse faltering, it's the Hive really playing solid Rocket League in 3v3.
Yeah, the Hive have jumped on every single opportunity they get, and the reason they're able to do that is because they're managing their positioning well. If you aren't positioned well, you don't get to take these shots as they develop. So right now, the Hive, they're all over the field. They're in good positions. They're generally faster to the ball, and they're just more effective in generally with the team play. I think if you're the Eclipse, speed, team play, positioning, and demos and bumps to disrupt all of that for the Hive.
Well, the Eclipse had a hot start to game number 2. They couldn't convert on that offensive pressure that they started early for themselves. And now it is that time yet again here at early stages in game number 3 now with the Hive up very convincingly 2-0. They have a perfect shutout for themselves so far, and we'll see if they can hang on to that. Not if the Eclipse have anything to say about it, but the Hive here on offense yet again. Fuse going to get a kind of calculated fake on the ground pinch off of the ceiling shot. Brindle downfield, a chance for the doink that goes straight up in the air. Spartacus is going to have to recover on that one, and they barely do so. Fraud off the back wall. Few missing on that touch. And 2 players well and truly positioned all the way back, just giving a little bit too much respect to the Hive team on that one.
They're so afraid to be beat in the transition right now, and it's really just shooting themselves in the foot as Brindle finally gets an effective shot on net, but Umari is more than up to the task to take that one away. We see this ball go back and forth. There's a big dunk. That's an opportunity. Fraud touched away by Few, and I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to jinx this, but it would be incredible, unfortunate, but incredible to see a perfect shutout, a 5-0 sweep without a single goal allowed. But for the Eclipse's sake, I am hoping that is not what ends up happening here, because this could be a very long series if that is the case.
That, you're right, is not a fate I would wish on any team in MLE. It would be interesting. That's one way to put it, but yeah, demoralizing for your team, no doubt. And so the Eclipse here, they've given themselves a solid chance. They've kept the score sheet clean, and the Hive have been doing plenty of scoring in this series, so that's no easy task. But they, after that early stretch of pressure that they had, haven't really been able to continue it all that much here, and it's the Hive again in their zone. Again, a miss on the back wall, and again, Amari is going to plug one home here and get the scoring started for the Hive.
You know, when we got started, I thought it was going to be Few that was the offensive powerhouse that slams home every single goal, but it's turning out to be Omari, who picked up a hat-trick in the last game and is now tied with goals with Few for this series. Though it does seem the Eclipse have found a way to slow down this Hive offense. They have slowed down the pace of scoring, which is a good start. That is the progress they need to be making. If they can continue to shift this as time goes on, they can start picking up some wins here, as that one's just off the post. A little bit of an awkward position in the net. Now Brindle attempting to clear, gets beat out by Umari. Spartacus in the corner. Fraud dives at this one, but doesn't quite find it. Was trying to bang that one clear, but I think almost for the better to keep that one close. Spartacus now through the corner, touched away by Fraud. That one's back towards the net, and the offensive pressure developing as Few throws that one into the back wall. The Hive bringing the pressure downfield, and don't feel like they have a care in the world. They're very calm. They're very comfortable with how this series has gone so far, and with good reason.
And I think I can see on the field how quiet the comms might be for the Eclipse team right now, in just the way that you're seeing multiple players attempt on a ball. The rotations are a little bit jumbled up, as you can see right there, with 3 players stacked on that play in one way or another. And I think that that's such a difficult thing to overcome, because you have to kind of make confidence and determination out of nothing when the series is not going well for you. But they sorely need that here, because if they can shore up the communication, we saw early in this game that they can threaten the Hive net. And the Hive, meanwhile, they're going to keep going with business as usual if the Eclipse don't try to interrupt it in some way.
Yeah, I had an opportunity a little while back to interview some very high-level players, and every single one of them I asked, how do you get to this level, and how do you play at this level? And the answer for every single one of them, having not seen or heard the other interviews, was the mental game. It's all in the mental game. How do you mentally manage a single play? How do you manage a game? How do you manage a series? How do you manage an entire season? Right now, we need to see the Eclipse manage this game. So far, they've done a good job keeping this one close. They're only down by 1. If ever there's a time to strike and get some momentum back in this series, it's now.
Well, it's the narrowest lead they've had to fight against here from the Hive, sitting at 1-0. Still, That's an O, though. A 0 for the Eclipse on the board. They're trying to find their first goal in the series in game number 3. Chipped into the mid by Spartacus. That's touched back out to the outside by Rogers. Oh, a good opportunity. Might even turn into a better one, but that's a double whiff for the Eclipse. Can Spartacus get there in time? And it's not going to work out. They're very unfortunate on the front end for the Eclipse as bad goes to worse here in game 3.
It's a quick clear, and it's another transition goal this time. I understand why the Eclipse are playing a very conservative defense, because it's goals like that that make you scared to push upfield, and they get burned when they do. It's just the Hive doing such an excellent job of seeing the open space and taking advantage of it. Eclipse continues to bang this ball down. Here's an opportunity as Fraud throws that one wide. Now Few picks this up. It's still in front of the net. Brindle is up, but Rogers finds it first. Spartacus with the contain at midfield. 19 seconds remain in game number 3. Brindle plays that one down. Rogers into the corner, or out of the corner, rather. Fraud back down. Spartacus tries to doink. Leaves it. Brindle finds the goal. That is the Eclipse first of the series, and hopefully that is the momentum change that they need.
And there it is. It's the containment at midfield. The refusal to relinquish control of the ball and make one more attempt to keep that in the offensive zone and keep the rotation going for your team. They kept the pressure on long enough that the defense broke down for the Hive, and that is going to be a recipe for success that they have found for themselves now. They have a key to success here in this series. If they can score on 0 seconds, they could also tie the game. They're not going to do that, but at the very least, they have one ingredient in the recipe for getting this series turned around for themselves. But that is the Hive taking a clean 3-0, and they've secured the series win for themselves overall. We've got 2 more to play to decide just how dominating that win is going to be.
If you are new here, this is MLE Esports, and we use game wins and not series wins when it comes to playoff contention. So we will play all 5 of this series to make sure we have the full stat line, regardless of the fact that the Hive have now taken the series victory in a 3-0 sweep, just like Thunder has mentioned. But I think we've said enough about the Hive, the things they're doing well, because they've played kind of the same game through all 3 games. That hasn't really changed much. They've been very stable and very consistent in how they played this one. On the flip side, however, the Eclipse finally stepping up. They were a little rocky through that mid-game. Like you said, you could tell that they're just not talking to each other. But I think those comms started to pick back up. You could see them double committing a little bit less, a little bit more sure about who was going for what. And they were a little bit quicker to challenge. And then finally, like you said, the big key here is the midfield contain. Hive's number 1 strike is in the transition play. They shut down the transition and kept the Hive within arm's reach.
And I think despite not being able to pull that game back and win it at the end, they ended it as well as they could have in terms of snowballing some momentum into the next game. I would not be surprised to see the Eclipse start this game off pretty strong if they can not let the intermission between games reset them mentally. If they can keep that going here, and I'm seeing not all players on the field here for the Hive team. It looks like we've got a false start and a game freeze, actually, that being for Amari. So we're just going to have a little bit of a lobby reset here, a slight technical break. And you know what? That's unfortunate. I just mentioned, hey, hopefully the intermission between games doesn't mentally reset the Eclipse. Their momentum was so great. And then there's a false start and a frozen PC somewhere. And unfortunately, they're going to have to try to freeze themselves mentally in time and just hold on to that mindset going into game number 4.
Well, let me offer an alternative theory for you, in that they do take this freeze, this intermission, and they take some time to think, hey, what happened that was so great in the end of that last game, and how can we use that going forward? And hopefully it's to their advantage. But I would like to say, speaking of to your advantage, if you have a project that you need some music for, maybe you're live streaming, maybe it's a YouTube video, maybe it's a movie or something like that, a short film, such as one you may have seen earlier, make sure you give a look to our title sponsor, APM Music. They're going to be your number 1 resource for music. So this is MLE Esports presented by APM Music. So love the people that love us. Please go check them out. As the players get back into the match here, we are going to get into game number 4. And I think I could speak for all of us underdog fans. We're pulling for the Eclipse to try to get one out here, but the Hive have looked so solid so far this series. They're just going to be a tough team to take down. Try saying that 5 times fast.
Yeah, tough team to take down. And you know what? The Eclipse, I can see very clearly they are extremely anticipatory about getting this game started because we may need to have another lobby reset. One of the players may or may not have joined one of the teams and forced the lobby into game time yet again. So I would give my apologies for that, but hey, it's not my fault. We had one of the players who just really wants to play some Rocket League. We really want to cast some Rocket League, and we'll get to that shortly. But in the meantime,
eager to get rocking and rolling.
And we're eager to get rocking and rolling. And the Eclipse, I cannot blame them for that, because that was their first goal in the entire series, the one that they scored. And it was breaking a huge wall that had been built by the Hive that entire series long. No wonder they want to join teams and get that game started, because they finally broke through. And now it's like, can we please continue that and get back to business here? And meanwhile, the Hive, I think they're kind of undisturbed either way. They look so comfortable on the field. They're happy to just let this go the way it's going to go. And whenever the game starts, they just want to keep playing the game that they have been, because it has seriously been working for them.
Well, let me throw a word of caution to the Hive now here, is to not rest on your laurels, as the Eclipse are clearly starting to figure this one out. They're starting to figure out how to settle this one down and take advantage of the Eclipse and their play style. If you continue to use that play style, you run the risk to take advantage of the Hive, and that play style, you run the risk of being stagnant and predictable. Right now, it is the Eclipse to overcome, and then it'll be on the Hive to come up with something new.
Well, the Hive are, at least for the moment, looking up to their old ways here on offense, going for some diving chances on the ball. Amari has been scoring quite a few goals, not least of which was that great aerial goal that they found in game number 2 from the midfield line. That's a nice defensive play as well from Amari, who's now dribbling downfield. The 1v1, they go for the bump attempt on Spartacus. Not going to work out, and Spartacus is going to get some revenge back the other way on Few. Decent chance here. Momentum very slowed there, though, for the Eclipse, and the passing play, a major breakdown there. It just feels, again, like, it feels, I guess, like the Eclipse are going to score and score first in this game.
Well,
that was just a big-time rotational breakdown from the Hive.
Well, here it is. Now the Eclipse have 2 unanswered goals to their name, and they're off to the first lead of the series. A great start to game number 4 as they try to recover some of the games that they need. Which, like I said, if you're just joining us in Minor League Esports, it is game wins that determine playoffs. So every single game matters. The Eclipse right now proving that they have the mental stuff to get this one. And there's Rogers off the wall into the top shelf.
You know, I had a funny feeling about that one. As soon as Rogers touched it off the wall, and Amari, close in tow there, would have been equally eager to put a touch on that one. I got the sense that the Eclipse were not going to be prepared for that to be a shot directly on target, and that definitely proved to be true. But thankfully for the Eclipse, they found themselves an early goal, and now it is only even between the two teams here in Game 4. It's a 3-0 lead in the series for the Hive, but now they're fighting a little bit with the Eclipse. That's a good shot on target, and even better save forced out from Fraud on the retreating defense. In the middle of the field, Spartacus wins the challenge against Amari, and Fraud is going to chase into the corner. Gets a touch around Few, missing on it. Brindle, a big shot opportunity, is going to capitalize, and the Eclipse get their lead back.
I think everybody in the Hive thought Fraud was going to follow this ball in. It was not ready for him to turn away. Few doesn't get the read on the back wall, and Brindle takes advantage of a wide open net to put the ball just dead center. But I really like what I see out of the Eclipse and their rotations right now. They've got kind of my basic rule of threes is with 3 players, you should always have a player challenging the ball. You should always have a player getting in position for a pass, a defensive challenge, whatever it is, and a player grabbing some boost as that one goes off the post to be able to set themselves up later. And here's a play downfield. Rogers takes that one away. And that one's going to be touched easily upfield again by the Eclipse. And right now, the Eclipse are doing exactly that. Their rotations seem so much more solid than they did earlier in this series.
Well, you know, Lars, I think Spartacus fell victim to a very different rule of threes in Rocket League in that particular instance, and it's the 3 places on the net you really don't want to hit with the ball. It's the 2 posts and the crossbar, and they found one of those. Unfortunately, that could have been an insurance goal for them as we approach the halfway mark of the game, but we're going to stick here with a 2-1 lead that the Hive are trying to overturn. Oh, Brindle is in a heap of trouble here, but the shot's not going to come on target from Amari. Few also not reading the bounce out of the corner, and Brindle is going to try to gather this one. Rogers with the uncalculated back pass, I think. Great pass into the mid. Amare is going to cut that one off quickly. And the Hive, they are a strong defensive team. Make no mistake about that. They haven't been tested very often in this series, but when they have, they've stood up when they need to for the most part until really this game.
You say that, but here we are with the Hive down by 1 as we get past the halfway point here. They're still looking for these pass plays. They're still looking for the transitions. They just haven't found it like they used to. And the Eclipse appear to have cracked the code at how to take the lead here. So as I described at the intermission and kind of the first part of this game, is now it's on the Hive to come up with something new. The transition plays just aren't doing it like they used to be. Find a new way to attack that net and get it back downfield, and then you can go back to the transitions as you throw some variety into this. And here we have Eclipse sending this one upfield. The pass to center to Spartacus. That's a beautiful look, and I love this new Eclipse.
Oh, I was so excited for that play. I saw it developing in transition and prayed that we would get to see a goal replay to take another look at it. Unfortunately, the shot, it was a difficult reaction for Spartacus because the pass was so quick off the side wall. But these are great markers here for the Eclipse. As you mentioned, this is a team that is becoming more and more fun to watch with each passing second. And they're also getting closer and closer to winning themselves a game. Their first one in this series. They're up 2-1, 1:10 thereabouts to play on the clock here. And it's over to the middle of the field. Rogers trying to tap it for a teammate. They will find Amare, who hits it off the back wall. The follow-up from Few, though, not coming through. And there's the Hive missing an opportunity. They have not done that all that often this series.
It was a huge opportunity, as well as Fraud tries to put one on. Umare takes that one out. Now a little bit of awkward position. Hive, they're all in this corner. A big opportunity for the Eclipse to punish. They elect to slow this one down. Perfectly happy to kill some time. They know they don't need a goal, but they may get one anyways. Here's another one. That's another push on net. Umari finally trying to get that one clear. It's still lurking kind of in this shooting lane, and that's an unfortunate touch. But no one from the Eclipse there to punish it. Now with 30 seconds remaining, the Hive, if they want to keep the sweep in the 5-game set alive, they need to find a goal here. But Eclipse in rare form, keeping this one well clear of the front of the net.
This has been, on both ends of the field, a little bit of a circus near the goal lines and near the defensive ends. No goals came from it, although you might see one here. If Spartacus can win this race, it's going to be Amari, actually. And this could afford Hive another scoring opportunity. Amari picks up full boost out of the corner, chips it off of the back wall. Still airborne, but a little bit of a bump in the corner is going to force that one to the ground, and the Eclipse are on the board. They've got themselves a win in the series, and we've got one left to play to see if they can bring it just that little bit closer.
This is a bit of a coup for the Eclipse. They brought more offensive pressure. Their defense was much more stable, much more effective at getting that ball clear of the shooting lane. They did such an excellent job of preventing any real attack at the front of the net, and they have shut down Hive's transition play. That was the number one thing they needed to do to try to pull a win out of this series, and they've done it. They have cracked the code. They've got it figured out. Now the question is, can they, A, consistently continue to shut down that transition play? I've seen it plenty of times where a team figures it out in Game 4, they look really, really hot, and they get it done, and then Game 5 is back to the same old, same old. So I would like to see the Eclipse. They looked very, very solid, very comfortable in this game. If they can continue to do that through game number 5, we could see them take this to a 3-2 series.
We certainly could. And the Hive, they looked unsettled for the first time in this series. They were challenged to the ball. They were hemmed in their own zone for extended stretches of time, and that's not something that they really had to face for the first 3 games of the series. So they were in uncharted waters for that one. And now they got to right the ship and see if they can close this one out and give themselves a more convincing series win. Really, the task is on them at this point. And the Eclipse, meanwhile, they've built something that they could really close out in a good way here in this series. And closeouts, we're talking about finishing a series. What better note than at Manfield night to be able to close out a series? I honestly just can never say enough good things about this map in Rocket League.
I think, honestly, my favorite is Beckwith Park. I like the casual feel to it, the comfortable feel to it. But speaking of comfortable, Spartacus a little uncomfortable with that touch. Doesn't quite get that one towards the net. Umari wins the midfield challenge, and the Hive seem to have the advantage here. Just barely a few seconds gone in this Game 5. And there's a shooting opportunity from Fraud. Barely saved by Umari, but it's a beautiful look. The Eclipse trying to do a transition of their own. I love that upfield pass. Now Few gets this one downfield, 50 by Fraud. 2 Eclipse players on the wall. Few looking to keep control of this one in the offensive end. A couple of quick transitions back and forth. A good look on both sides of the ball. Oh my goodness, it's on the goal line. Oh no, they just can't quite find the finish. But now, a minute gone. Thunder, thoughts, questions, concerns, comments, hopes, and or dreams?
I don't remember all the words you just said. All I can remember is that save on the goal line by the Eclipse to keep that ball out of the net. They're not going to keep it out for very long, though, as Rogers is going to slam one from the midfield and find this goal for the Hive. That's retribution for the chance they missed just a little bit earlier.
That's unfortunate how the Eclipse, they double commit on that attempt to get it past the midfield. It ends up going straight up, and then Spartacus just can't quite find the touch, despite being the faster player to the ball. Allow Hive to take the first lead here of game number 5. But I say the first lead because I have absolute faith that we could see this turn around back the other way. Eclipse putting up 2 to Hive's 1 in the last game. We just need to see them return to form and settle some of these rotations down a little bit.
Along the sidewall now, Fraud's got a good chance at some possession here, but gets handed away. Confusion coming out of the demo in the corner is going to go the way of the Hive so far. Amari challenging that to mid. Rogers, the aerial touch over top. Huge opportunity here. That's a brilliant pass by Rogers. And I will say, not the first one we've seen from that player this series.
No, this is the purposeful transition breakout passes that we know and love the Hive for here in this series. They do such an excellent job of being aware of where their teammates are on the field, seeing these opportunities develop, and then just absolutely nailing those passes. I mean, it's one thing to see that opportunity, and it's another thing to actually hit that pass and then hit the net.
And they hit it in style. No one even in the same area code to be able to defend that one. After Rogers dusted a couple of players and nailed the pass from midfield, the Hive up 2-0. And back to the rhythm that they had found for themselves in the first 3 games in this series. Not a good look if you're a fan of the Eclipse here. But thankfully, if you are one of those fans, they've got a good chunk of the game here left to work with. We're just approaching the halfway mark. We're approaching the defensive end here for the Eclipse, but we're headed back the other way now. Rogers with some boost to work with is going to go for the air dribble, but loses the handle a little bit on that one. Still in the possession of the Hive. Brindle barely getting a touch away as the storming Few was coming downfield to try and plug that one home. But the Eclipse are just barely holding on defense here. They need to develop an offensive counterpart to what they've been doing on the back end.
Yeah, they've slowed down the Hive scoring. Yeah, we saw a couple of big transition plays, and don't get me wrong, I love my transition plays, but there's the back wall play. Another offensive strategy I like to see. Few extends that lead to 3.
And you get the sense now that you were talking in the intermission about that blip in the radar game that you can have in a series that would otherwise have been a sweep, where a team finds it for one, and they just can't hold on to that success that they got for themselves in one game, and the team on top just gets back to it in the final game. It certainly looks like that so far here, as the Hive are threatening the net yet again here with a pass coming out into the mid from Few. Along the sidewall now, Few is dunking, stopping out. Spartacus gets a touch into the corner, miss from a few Hive players, but not jumped upon. And that little hop step that we saw from the Eclipse being willing to dive on the ball, it looks like it's dissipated, and that is not how you want to see the 4th goal go in when they were already down by a lot. That's a big demoralizer here for the Eclipse.
I have good news for Brindle. They are in good company. I watched First Killer do almost the exact same thing not 3 hours ago today. So it happened. It's unfortunate, but with 90 seconds or so left on the clock, it is a tall order in a 3v3 matchup to make that comeback. Spartacus attempting to even that out just a little bit here, but they don't quite find the touch. Spartacus again on the contain through the corner. Pops this one and over. Fraud will have a little bit of time to get up, but not too much as Few. Puts that one through. This one in front of the net, a great recovery out of Fraud. It's still a little bit wide. They're struggling to get that last touch on the net, but a great job of putting this ball center. Spartacus on net, and the Eclipse offense finally finds a stride, but with only 60 seconds remaining, is it too little, too late?
It certainly does feel that way here. The Hive are just trying to hold on to the big lead they've established for themselves and close this series out. And I think with 45 seconds left here and a few goals to score, that one not finding its way in. Brindle not getting the follow-up either. You could more or less call this series as a 4-1 win here for the Hive. And we'll see now whether I'm going to be calling the stat line as the Hive only getting scored on in 2 games or 3. Oh, it could have been 2 games that they held scoreless with a goal coming there late from the Eclipse. But unfortunately, it may end up being 3 clean sheets with that big opportunity going by the wayside.
And as the Hive drives this ball down into the offensive end, it's going to burn a lot of clock from the Eclipse attempt to get one last goal here in this series. The Hive contained in midfield. 2 players up. They're both looking for the shot on net. It's off the crossbar. It's back out. But with Rogers having this ball under control, they will elect to keep this one up. I like the sportsmanship. We're not going to bang this one down because we've already secured the win. We'll let you have one more opportunity on this, or maybe we'll take one ourselves. Unfortunately, for everybody on the field, that one's played down to the Hive. Take their 3rd game with a perfect score line, and they take the series 4-1.
That's a big win here for the Hive, a very convincing one on a team that so far in the season had kind of a split record. As I said, only 1 series to judge by, and it was all but assuredly a different combination of players. But this combination sure worked for the Hive. They looked incredibly confident on the field. And that now puts them to 7-3, which is great shape to be in after a couple of threes matches, and the Hive are starting off their season on a great foot.
Yeah, that if you are a Champ League team, you have to come back and watch this series and see what the Hive did so well to just run over the Eclipse here. Eclipse couldn't put him in the dark, couldn't put him in the shade. And unfortunately, we're only able to take 1 game off this team. And honestly, I think they scored, what was it, 3 or 4 goals in the entire series. They need to take some time to settle down. And really, I think it's mostly chemistry more than anything. It's not a lack of mechanical skill, that's for sure. These are plenty skilled players. It's not a lack of any kind of ability on the field. I just don't think they had the chemistry they needed going through this series.
It's very true. And we can't necessarily fault them for that in week 2. Of a 14-match, 12-week season where there is a lot of practice and development to be done for teams. So this is something to build upon for the Eclipse and something to celebrate for the Hive, and a great way to get us started off on a doubleheader of Champ League matches. And Lars, we've got another one coming up just after this as well.
We got the Panda versus the Flames Champ League. We will be right back after a short intermission. Stick around.